Hi there again. It's Jonathan Herbst, founder and CEO of ScaleUp GROWTH. Welcome to my Business Focus series, where I chat with owners, managing directors, founders, and business leaders of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and their aspirations for their companies. So today I'm really pleased to introduce Andrew Murray, who's founder and CEO of Curve Securities. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
I'm going to ask you straight up, what are you doing for how long? But maybe you could put it in perspective of the conversation you and I have just had, given we're 2 weeks after the failure of the Silicon Valley Bank, and it's sort of relevant to what you do, Andrew, and also to how you started. So, let's start. You do it how long? Can you tell me a bit of background, please?
Yeah, absolutely, Jonathan. We started in 2009. That was clearly an interesting time. During the middle of the GFC, term deposits were guaranteed. And what we did was we helped a lot of banks outside of the four majors to source deposit funds from investors that traditionally might not have known that they existed, and similarly to help investors to diversify their investments across a range of banks, securing the $1 million guarantee it was then. It's now 250,000. And we've grown through that period of time to assist 88 different banks source wholesale funding through products like term deposits, but also a wholesale professional product called negotiable certificates of deposit. And we've got about 400 clients who are traditionally, generally institutions or organizations, such as corporations that have a business function of placing surplus money out with banks, spreading it based on their investment policy, and setting maturity dates based on cash flow requirements so they have enough to pay payroll. And it's interesting that given this has been recorded a week after Silicon Valley Bank has gone under, we've had the chaos caused by Credit Suisse earlier this week, that there's many it's slightly mirroring what was happening back in the GFC when Lehman went into Silicon Valley Bank, the second largest, and the first bank since Lehman Brothers to go under. And many questions about funding, where banks get their funding from, ensuring they have enough liquidity to pay depositors back if they want their money. And so certainly last week we were very busy calming clients, but also talking to banks, informing them as to current environment, where interest rates were, and assisting them to bolster their liquidity a little bit in case there was an outflow. So we really play an important piece in the center of that money flow coalface, if you like, outside of the majors, ensuring that that money flows efficiently to banks that need it, not willing to pay the highest rate, but also ensuring clients invest prudently in line with their investment policy so they're not overexposed to any one bank. And overexposure and lack of diversification is one of the things that brought Silicon Valley undone, Silicon Valley Bank undone. And so diversification from a bank point of view and an investment point of view are key reasons for our existence.
Yeah, given we're a week after that, maybe I could just ask you to delve a little bit more deeply. As I understand it, I'm an ex-banker from 30 years ago, but it was the mismatch of short-term cash being withdrawn and long-term loans. That's essentially, am I being too simplistic then?
No, that is the case, but just to clarify the loan aspect, normally a bank would take a lot of short-term deposits and they would lend it out for mortgages. They would manage that interest rate risk if the loans were fixed. Most of our loans until recently have been variable, so it's been matched from an interest rate risk perspective. What Silicon Valley Bank did was there wasn't a lot of demand for loans, so they actually played the spread, if you like, where they got deposits in at a very, very low rate at the time during the pandemic, and to try and get yield and to get a bit of a margin of paying for deposits, they invested in very long-term securities and a lot of mortgage based securities that were traded in the market, but fixed interest rate. So they were getting floating interest rate investing in a fixed interest rate. So they had an interest rate mismatch, which normally banks would hedge using things like swaps, but they didn't. And because of changes Trump made in 2018, that bank sat outside of extra regulatory obligations, which meant that they could hold all these bonds and not mark them to market. So as interest rates go up, you actually lose money on fixed bonds. And so because they had a big outflow of cash, they had to realize, they had to sell the bonds, realize a loss, and that loss on those bonds effectively wiped out their entire capital of the bank. It was something like 18 billion. I'm not 100% sure of that, but it was an enormous amount of money that they lost to be able to get the money back to pay out depositors. So they very quickly made them insolvent, and people got wind, and so there was more withdrawals of deposits, which meant they needed to sell more bonds, which they couldn't do. They couldn't realize the losses. So it's a unique situation. So I don't think there'll be spillover, but it has made a lot of people very, very nervous. The Swiss National Bank had to step in and sort Credit Suisse out, which is a different issue, but became an issue because of that fear that Silicon Valley Bank generated, and the Fed in America and the different regulators have had to step in to calm the markets, and there's talk of them guaranteeing all deposits and just to try and stabilise the situation and save a couple of other banks that look like they might have been teetering, which is First Republic Bank. And so I think the situation is calming down, and I think Australia is a very unique in that respect. We don't have banks that would be allowed to have that interest rate risk exposure, and APRA has done a very good job. And certainly after Silicon Valley Bank went under, APRA rang every single bank and asked for extra information on their bond portfolios and valuation. So we were being asked to value a lot of their bond portfolios to ensure that they weren't underwater. Most of the clients we deal with buy floating rate notes, and so you don't have that fixed rate exposure. Very few of them buy the fixed rate, and that's what brought Silicon Valley Bank undone.
It's just interesting, isn't it? I personally lived through the 2007, 8, 9, and then before that, the other areas of the 20% interest rates. It's an interesting world.
Yeah.
So
certainly,
your best customer, your core customer, tier 2 banks here in Australia and elsewhere, I gather, if there's 88 odds.
Yeah, we deal with, in terms of the banks, in Australia, full banks. We've got, credit unions, and that changed to use the word bank, mutual bank. They can call themselves building societies, but also a lot of branches of foreign banks. They would issue this other product called NCD. So they're the ones that really pay us. We don't charge our investing clients for the service, but we view them as our clients that we service. We also, work closely with the banks, but from the investing client point of view, where we really help and our ideal client is any organisation with, say, 20 million and above in surplus funds that they need to place out, but they have an investment policy that requires them to diversify and not to put too much money with one bank, and be able to put money with AA rated bank, which is a major, or A rated bank, which is Macquarie Bank or RMG, or a BBB rated bank, which is pretty much most of the rest of them, and some unrated credit unions. And that's our best type of client, because that's where we can really help. They can access, they can talk to the 4 majors themselves. It's not hard to ring 4 banks, but to access all the other banks, they can do that through one contact point, and we can provide them with that breadth of opportunity. And when one bank is looking, we can let them know. But not every bank is looking for money every day in our sector. That we might have a bank that rings and says, we want 10 million. We'll take that opportunity to a client. And then next day, another bank will be looking. An investor that has an investment policy and needs to spread their deposits can't possibly cover the whole market every time they're looking to invest. So for those clients, we save them an enormous amount of time. We enable them to get access to opportunities they wouldn't be able to access otherwise, and just build a more robust and efficient business process for the placement and management of their surplus funds. So that's our ideal client type.
Okay, thank you. So we've all been through the pandemic. I mean, hopefully we'll come out of it well and truly now. What actions did you take during the pandemic that have stuck with you, that have remained with the business going forward?
We'll work from home on Friday. We work in the office Monday to Thursday. So our work is very collaborative. We need to listen to each other and what we're talking to other clients about, to get ideas, to find out about if Bank A is looking. And if we're all at home too much, it's very hard, because you've got to go on Teams and say Bank A is looking for money, and it slows everything down, as opposed to calling out to the team, such a bank is paying 4.5% for 1 year. So we try and all come in on Monday to Thursday, but having a day from home to do different things is handy. So we've chosen Fridays to that. And that's probably not uncommon. Probably lots of organisations doing that. But it became clear that it was going to be too hard to do too much of that from home, given the nature of our business. So all being back Monday to Thursday is important. We do have a bit of flexibility. If someone needs to do something at home, they'll work from home, and we've got the tools to be able to do that. And the pandemic proves that. We were very fortunate in that we just moved to a cloud-based phone system in December 2019. And so for us to go home, it was virtually seamless. We've got a cloud-based customer relationship management system, which is also our dealing platform. We've got a cloud-based file system. We've got a cloud-based phone, and our internet is cloud-based, Microsoft Exchange, which most people are with. So that enables us to be able to log in and operate wherever. Security then becomes an issue, so we've been very careful to concentrate on various measures that ensure that even though we're in that environment, everything is very, very secure. We've got all the measures in place to monitor that. So there's probably not a whole lot that we would keep from the pandemic that we were doing already. We were already in the cloud. We were already had that flexibility. But that Friday, we may all come back 5 days a week at some point, because we're a lot more efficient. But at the moment, we're still doing Fridays from home.
Okay, thank you. It takes me back. One of my first jobs was as a money market dealer on the cash desk. And
oh, right. Which bank?
With Australian Bank in those days. In fact, I'm reading a book, The Millionaire's Factory, before I beg right now, and I'm reading about Mark Johnson, who was then the managing director of Australian Bank. And it's just been taking me back at, handwritten dockets, yelling across dealing rooms, the chalkboard in the stock exchange, how things have changed.
Oh, they have. When I used to work at NAB, and I left there in the middle of 96, we didn't have email. We had on the money market desk there at the fixed income desk. And I really don't know how I operated without email, to be honest. No idea. It was faxes, I think.
It was just, I remember running my computer onto the 6.5-inch floppy disks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I'm showing my age. I think I'll stop.
Certainly has changed.
So, Adam, what does the future look like for the business, and what do you see as your main challenges going forward?
Look, I think technology is a massive enabler. We've always concentrated on using technology to build in efficiencies and productivity and to automate things. But it's also something that, as technology becomes more advanced, it also then requires a greater level of concentration and a greater level of focus to keep up with competitors, really. So Technology is a great enabler, but if you don't stay on top of it, it can also destroy you. And there's many sort of examples of that. We were very lucky. We moved to the cloud in 2010, and we used that to gain a competitive advantage against other much larger organizations, another much bigger company, FIG, at the time. And so because we had greater efficiencies, we could do a lot more deals and fill a lot more bank application forms in than they could, because we digitized it. We pressed a button, it filled it out, sent it to a client, whereas they were still printing it, filling it out, scanning it, and all this sort of stuff. So, but you can get that great leap, but unless you maintain that competitive advantage, you can fall behind. So that's one of the great challenges, keeping your technology advanced. But I think, the future really is in that technology and what it can give us, and can gain greater efficiency for our clients. So we've built an online platform called Yield Hub that enables us to put all our rates up and enables our clients to interact with it. And there's a lot more we can do with that. And I think technology is what is going to enable us to advance the functionality of that tool for the benefit of the clients, really. And that's always our focus, is what's going to elevate their performance and make their processes more efficient, so they can get this part of their job out of the way and get on with everything else they do. Because the clients that we deal with, it's usually finance department, accounts department, placing the surplus funds of the organization might be 10 or 15, 20 minutes of their day. They've got all this other stuff to do. If we can help them out, get it done efficiently, enable them to move on, I think that's great for them. But one of the big problems, I forget the term you use, but sort of inhibitors will be not only harnessing technology, but the regulatory change that we're going through. So in financial services or banking, anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing legislation means that everyone needs to be identified, and the process for that is becoming more arduous and being scrutinized more and more. And I think it's getting to the point where it's been a little bit ridiculous in some areas. And so for us, it means to manage that, we've probably got to zero in on our client types a little bit more to simplify that process, because some of the banks, it can just bury you in paperwork. And so we've got to be very careful with that. But again, technology can solve that, but it will only solve it if the banks come on the journey to accept digital verification of ID and things like that. So we're still having the banks requiring wet signatures and certified copies of driver's licenses and things like that, rather than electronic verification. It's easier to get money from a bank. So for loans, they'll accept electronic signature and digital verification. But if you want to give money to a bank, no chance. Very hard. You have to wet signature, all this sort of stuff. So I just find it ironic. It's easier to get $1 million from a bank than it is to give them $1 million. But I think that's that's a challenge that the whole industry is facing, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I'm a non-executive director of the superannuation fund, and so we deal with all of that. But one of the things I was thinking about as you do late at night was, the reason was because of this whole gambling conversation that's happening in New South Wales now. But, we went into a club for one of our children's friend's birthday party the other day. And they scan a copy of your driver's license. And
Right.
all of the breaking into systems, etc. Just jumping into a club's database, you'll get every driver's license known to man. And I'm sure they don't have real much security in place. So I can see sort of
It's a big risk, yeah, because when you're having to get all that stuff and then you see what happened to Latitude, it's a constant worry, and that's why we're very careful that the cloud-based file system we use is now being used by the RBA, and I'm pretty sure the ATO as well, and the CRM we use is the biggest and best in the world, and is used by Defence Department and the government and being ratified by the Signal Directorate and things like that. So, you got to pay a little bit extra for these services, but it's a negligible fee if the comparison is the business being wiped out because you've been hacked. So,
Exactly wrong.
yeah, very conscious of that.
Yeah, I've just spent most of the day working with ChatGPT today, and the changes are extraordinary.
Yeah, I have yet to, every time I try to have a look, the servers are busy, but that's another thing that's going to revolutionize a lot of different processes in a lot of different industries. From what I've read about it, it's quite astounding.
Well, I'm positioned as a thought leader for CEOs, and so what I decided to do today was ask ChatGPT. And by the way, to get around it's busy, $20 a month. It's nothing.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But I have asked ChatGPT today to write an online quiz for CEOs of my target market, and from there write a landing page, write a results page, write a results for each of the 18 questions in the 6 categories with a yes, no, maybe answer. Write a 5 email funnel following up. Write 50 blog titles to fit with this quiz. Write 6 LinkedIn promotions. And I'm just thinking I'm going to write a blog. Ask ChatGPT to write a blog about the process we've just gone through. And it's all happening like.
And did it give you decent results?
Fabulous results. Yeah, I would say that it's probably hitting. I even asked her to write in my tone because it's getting to know me. I think it's getting about 95% of where I want it to be, which is quite extraordinary. It is, and it just happens so quickly. But as an example of how technology, so to me, I think essentially for $20 a month, I picked up a 3-year experience marketing graduate. That's the difference in my business. So it's worth it. You'll see the blog, so you'll see what I mean.
I'll have a look.
What's your biggest learning, do you think, since you become a business owner?
To be very careful and keep a very close eye on systems and processes. One thing I learned very early was, there was a particular bank that we dealt with, long application form, and while we had the ability to fill in the application form and send it off, I realized that if there was part of the application form that was wrong, or there was some incorrect information or something that we hadn't done, the amount of time it took to fix that up with phone calls, waiting in a call queue, was absolutely mind-boggling, and it just heightened the importance of just taking that little bit of extra time and care to get things right the first time, rather than having to go through the time, money and resources to fix it. Because when you're starting a business, you don't have a lot of fat, you don't have a lot of buffer to be working on things that are not revenue generating. Because as a business that did not have any debt or did not have investors, we really relied on revenue coming in to sustain the business and to enable us to grow organically. So being very conscious of that, and also therefore conscious of, can this be done a better way? Can I cut out a couple of clicks? Can I redesign something that is going to get to the end result quicker, which is going to free me up to do other things. And so that enabled us to very early on build a framework and a dealing system, which was incredibly efficient. And I always had this mantra of, can we get rid of a click? Or that's one click too many. And, you know, it doesn't seem much in isolation, but when it builds up, and we have about an hour each day to generate all of our revenue, because that's when decisions are made. Because as you would know from your time, so BBSW comes out, wholesale rates are set at 10:30, and then decisions are made after that. So there's a very short period of time to communicate all these deals. So being very efficient and productive was really important. So having a clear idea on that, and also of not wasting money. I used to marvel at organizations that would do capital raises and then get a nice fancy office with a marble reception desk and say, right, aren't we great? But without any revenue. And then they'd have to ask for another capital raise, and eventually they'd die. Starting during the GFC, there was plenty of desks available on eBay for businesses folding. So, you know, all our desks were bought for $50 a piece. Moved into an office in Surrey Hills, and we're just careful with the dollars. I mean, it's my money, so it meant I was being a little bit more careful. And so I think that's important. Just being really wary of efficiency, productivity, but also your cash flow, and just being sensible with those dollars at the early stages.
Cash is king.
Yep, and certainly is.
That's right. So, Adu, when you think of the word successful, who pops to mind and why?
Who as an individual?
Yep.
Well, Twiggy Forrest just came to mind for some reason, but I think the reason for that is, you know, he had a few different ventures, which didn't work out so well, but then he started Fortescue and, you know, built that up from pretty much nothing to a massive powerhouse, and now he's using that as a launch pad to do a lot of other initiatives and a lot of his philanthropy. You know, I think that's impressive. You know, I always think what Steve Jobs did was quite amazing, in that, you know, his products have changed the world. You know, I've got an Apple AirPod and an Apple phone, a MacBook Pro here. So, you know, and their focus on not focusing on the product, but focusing on the experience, I think was a key differentiator. It was about not creating, you know, necessarily the fastest computer, but creating a computer that or a phone that provided an experience which was above or better than anything else. So I think, you know, he's obviously been very successful. And then, you know, there's your obvious ones, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, although Elon Musk is kind of more entertaining than anything else of late, with all of his the different things that he's done. But they would be people that would come to mind.
You know, it's interesting you talk about the people you've been talking about. One of the things that particularly Steve Jobs focused on was a key thing I coach, which is make it easy. You know, make it easy to do for your staff, your clients, and your suppliers to do business with.
Yeah.
And going back to your point about the detail, you know, Jobs, once he got back into Apple, their plan was to launch one product only every 2 years. And the level of detail they got into, he and Johnny Ives, the head of design, you know, when you open an iPhone box, can you remember it sort of got this sucking sound? Yeah, they spent months just getting that one aspect right. Jobs's VA said that the one place she could only guarantee to ever find him was on a Wednesday at 12:30 for 4 hours when he was with Johnny Ives in a marketing strategy design meeting every Wednesday.
Right.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that would have been a fascinating process to be a part of, because the design of the products is quite amazing. Even the unboxing is amazing.
Yeah,
I never know how they get the boxes to be that tight and efficient.
but the attention to detail, absolutely extraordinary.
Just on quickly on one point that's always been very, very important for us as well, is making it easy, is from a client point of view, is being available for them and to be present, so that they don't need to come looking for opportunities. So if we have an opportunity, we'll take that to the client so they know that it's there. And just by ringing them or sending them email, it makes it easy for them to go, oh, what I have you? Yep, that sounds good. Haven't had time to think about it, but yes, you're right. Can we do X? I had an experience like that this morning. I just sent somebody an email with some information and went, yep, great. Okay, we need to do that. Done, and get on with the rest of your day. And it's all about making it easy for the client without being pushy.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And as you would have seen in the process of arranging this interview, you received a series of emails, a series of texts to remind you, to give you the questions, etc. That's all. Yeah, it's all an automated workflow. But it wouldn't have felt impersonal. It would have felt as though it's coming from me, frankly. And that's about all part of what we do as well. I'm going to send something to you afterwards, because I've been a bit naughty. Lack of focus. While we were talking, I wrote into ChatGPT, write a 2,000-word blog on. So I'll send it to you. Oh, it's no 1,000-word blog. No, 2,000-word blog on the experience of working with ChatGPT today, and it's just written a blog for me, 2,000 words. So I'm not even going to change it. I'm going to post it later in the second.
No, I'd love to. Yeah, that'd be great. Have a look at that.
Last two questions. Any blogs, books, business autobiographies, biographies that you'd recommend?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm always wanting to read things and never have time to read them, and kind of always wait for holidays to catch up with things. One blog that I do listen to every morning, or a factual blog, is the NAB Morning Call, which is very useful for our area. It just gives a good summary of what's happened overnight, discusses US and UK and what's happening in Australia. In 15 minutes, it gets me up to speed really efficiently. There's another blog that I listen to sometimes driving, called Acquired, which is very interesting. It's about different things, fintech startups. They cover quite a broad area, like semiconductor industry or other industries. There's another one which just escaped me, but if I go to my podcast app and go down, it might be on there. How I Built This, is also.
Yeah, Guy Raz.
I don't get to listen to it. Yeah, that's right. Not that often, but there's a few that have just been fascinating. There's one by the guy that started Patagonia, which is really interesting. So yeah, he's pretty good. And I've got some others in here that I never get a chance to listen to. There's another one, The Next Step, which is about a process of private equity type process. Books, I've just been given a book by Joseph Healy and David Hornery, who started Judo Bank, called Black Belt, I think is the title. And it's an entrepreneur's guide, if you like, to starting a bank and the experiences that they've gone through and the lessons that they've learned. I'm actually going overseas next week, so I'll be taking that book with me to read on the plane and while I'm over there. And I'll be really looking forward to that one, that's for sure. But I always sort of take a note of different business books in case I get time to read them. But as you say, there's rarely time to do that.
The other one you should look at, given where you operate, is the Millionaire's Factory. It's only been launched in the last 2 weeks. It's at Macquarie Ag.
Yeah.
Of all things, I was in the only thing I'm not allowed to say no to with my children is when they want to buy a book. So I've got an 8 and a 9-year-old.
Yep.
Whenever they want a book, the answer is always yes. And we're in the bookshop, and by chance there's a lady there who said, I'm going to buy this because you wrote it. And I'm looking at it, and that's The Millionaire's Factory. So I met the author of this book. And I'm halfway through it already, a day and a half later, because it's, like Mark Johnson, who was the managing director of Australian Bank when I was there, who went on to be deputy chair, I think, of Macquarie Bank. There's a lot of people in there I know, but it's some of the leadership lessons of the company, not just banks, of how Macquarie Bank manages risk, and therefore how it's grown is quite phenomenal. So I'd throw out another one for you to take away.
Yeah, right. Great. Yeah, I've written that down. So that's good. I'll look out for that. That'll be useful.
So last question. Any last piece of advice or parting words for entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
Look, I think vision and direction is really important. We've always been very niche and narrow focused in what we do. We know that we do it really well. There's a lot of other things that we could be doing, but we've got limited resources. We're a small team. We've got 11 or 12 people, but we look after about $7.5 billion in deposits and turnover about a few $100 million in fixed income securities every month as well. So we concentrate on that to the point of in some of the markets we operate that we're dominant. We play a really important part in that. So I think clarity and focus is very important. But the other thing is creativity. There's many solutions to every problem, and I think from being in banking, I then went off into filmmaking and was a director doing TV commercials and different things, which was all very interesting until we had kids, and they're very expensive. So taking some of the creativity, I load through those processes has been invaluable, because, it's not always the first answer or first solution that you think of is the best solution. And you've always got to think a number of steps ahead. So if you have a solution, what are the next steps, or what are the implications of that solution? And so I think really thinking about problems and thinking about the different solutions and thinking about a number of steps down the track, like a game of chess, is also extraordinarily important, because it's not, the solution right in front of you is not necessarily the right one. You may go to a less optimal solution now, but that will open up greater opportunities and other solutions further on down the track. So I think thinking strategically, but also thinking quickly, and also being decisive. Sometimes you just need to make a decision. May not always be the right decision, but if it's wrong, realize it very quickly and change it. But sometimes you're not going to know what's right or wrong until you actually make a decision and move forward. It's better to do that than do nothing, because for us, doing nothing is dying. Because and with any business or industry, you've often got to be moving forward just to stay at an even level, or grow just to stay in the same. Because if you don't grow, the people around you, competitors around you, will grow and soon become irrelevant. So that's not one piece. There's quite a few things in there, but they've been the key things that have come to my mind over the years.
Yeah, and they're all good. Thank you. Oh, and it's been a great conversation. And as always with these conversations, a couple of things in there that have come out which haven't been raised before, and there's some great lessons in there. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity. It's always happy to talk when, a business owner or founder is always happy to talk about their business. So thanks for the opportunity to do that, and for me to be, I guess, introspective and explore some of the things that have taken place in our journey over the last 14 or close to 14 years. So thanks for that.
Thank you.